fell in love with Karen Williams when I heard her speak. I was laughing more than I was listening, I think, but it was kind of fun. So let me do a quick introduction. She graduated summa cum laude from Cleveland State University with a personally designed major in humor and healing. She earned a Master's of Education degree in Adult Learning and Development at CSU, which is Cleveland State University. Currently, Karen is working on a doctorate in social gerontology at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. I have 2 children who graduated from Miami, so I'm a fan. Karen Williams is the founder and CEO of the HaHa Institute, International Institute of Humor and Healing Arts, and former owner of the Healing Place Education Center in Northeast Ohio. She's the creator and facilitator of the Humor at Large workshop series, founder of the National Women's Comedy Conference, past president of the Association of Women's Music and Culture, former board member of AIDS, Medicine, and Miracles, Love Makes a Family, and the National Black Justice Coalition. She's a certified provider of communication skills and diversity courses for the California Board of State and Community Corrections. She's a nationally known and internationally acclaimed stand-up comic with a professional career spanning of 35 years. And would you know it, we're in the upstairs at the Viking Crown Lodge, and someone said, "I know you. I've seen you perform." I mean, is that not the smallest world that we live in? But I give you Karen Williams.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Oh, I forgot I had music, guys. Okay. Go Karen, go Karen, go Karen, go Karen. We were partying last night. Where were all of you?
No, the question is, where have you been the last 2 days?
Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm working on a doctorate. I'll be 70 in August. And I'll tell you how that came about. And yet I couldn't remember where we were dining together as a group. So that's why you haven't seen me. I'm wandering around the ship. We end up eating at the Windjammer. And of course, last night, Jason has to say, "Look at your card." It's right there on the card. So
Karen, it's 5:30.
5:30. So we will be there tonight while I'm building new neural pathways, I'm being told, working on this doctorate. Those simple stuff, like finding out where to eat, I'm totally at a loss. Okay. So anyway, I'm here to tell you people, this is not my first pandemic. I was living in San Francisco in the 80s, and if you all remember, HIV/AIDS. Yeah. I had friends who were losing 6 and 7 people a week. We'd be backstage as comics talking about a guy would tell me he was sick on Tuesday, and by Saturday he was gone, because the only drug at that time was AZT, which everybody was not faring well on that. So from 1980 to 1992, when I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, I was very active in the LGBT community. I am the first out Black lesbian comic in the country. So people recognize me. It wasn't Wanda Sykes, it was me. Really what it was is I came out as that. I didn't wait till I got rich and famous, and I'm still not rich and famous. But it was just the fact of being there in San Francisco and really being able to use my outness as a tool for activism. We had a president at that time who, in his 8 years in office, never mentioned HIV or AIDS as people were dying. So by the time we get to this pandemic and the confusion of that, I've already lived through the lack of effective leadership around handling a pandemic. We have all been really doing the best we can. I have a comedy career that started in 1981. I came out in probably around 83 and began working, as I'm saying, in terms of using my voice for activism. In 1988, I was asked to perform at a conference in Las Vegas, an HIV/AIDS conference, and the producer said, "Can you also do a workshop?" And in that yes and way I have of doing improv, I said, "Yes, of course." And I created the most rudimentary of workshops, called it Humor and Healing. And a guy came, gorgeous, blonde, beautiful man, who said his partner had died 3 days before, and he didn't think he would ever laugh again. So I knew I was on to something. So I created this International Institute of Humor and Healing Arts. I come from a marketing background, so HaHa. People would say, oh, I've heard of HaHa Institute. Of course you have. Everyone says, HaHa, you know, so you think you've heard of it because that was a marketing thing. And since that time, I've groomed and grown the Institute, went to college, did not have a chance since I was on the road to go to college. I went to Cleveland State University, did the 2 degrees within 5 years, wrote a personally designed major in humor and healing through First College at Cleveland State University, and then got my master's in adult learning and development. Adults learn very differently, we teach them differently. Became a curriculum specialist because I do create all of the programming that I present through my HaHa Institute. So my last live comedy gig was at the Villages in Florida on February 29th, 2020. I had planned a huge tour for the following year to bring me into 2023. And the tour, of course, was canceled. I found out a week after that I was accepted to Miami University in their doctorate program in social gerontology, which I had no idea what that was. But since they have waived my tuition and give me a beautiful stipend every month, I decided to go. So I now have a house in Euclid, Ohio, and an apartment down in Oxford, Ohio. I just completed last week the 2nd semester of the 2nd year. I was talking to Jill about statistics. I have been assured that new neural pathways are being built, that I will never have Alzheimer's because of that. And I managed to get a B in statistics. I found that out. Hardest thing I've ever tried to do. How grateful am I? Because a lot of my comic friends have had a very difficult time. We are all self-employed. We, some people continue to work through the pandemic, got COVID. I mean, it's just been very, very difficult on lots of people. I feel that I would have, with an almost 40-year career, would have gone into just deep grief, which I did not have a chance to do because I read on average 25 articles a week for this doctorate. So I don't have time really to be depressed. So that was a good thing for me. Very grateful to Mike for having me back here. Unlike the other speakers, I use notes. Why? Because I'm a comic and a storyteller, and I will entertain you and forget that you're here for credit points. Okay. Which, by the way, I just went to use the restroom, and I said to the guy in the elevator, isn't this the height of laziness? I'm taking the elevator up 1 floor, and he said, oh, don't worry, I won't use it tonight in my show. I said, are you the comedian? He said, yes. What's the likelihood? Wow. He and I are in the elevator just now. I said, I'm a comic too. He said, well, I really won't use it. I said, okay, bye. His name is Rick. I did ask his name, so we'll see him tonight. Anyway, so I'm going to start out by sharing with you my encouragement from today. I will nourish my inner martyr. These are affirmations for cynics. Today I will practice playing the victim with my friends and coworkers. It's better to gripe about people behind their backs than to cause problems by confronting them. So you HR people are really serious. You think this is serious? This is not serious. My family, friends, and associates could save me a lot of precious time by accepting the reality that I'm always right. See that I did? See more egos in this room. Then look at that. That got you. Yeah. I have a right to be dysfunctional. To amuse myself at work today, I will sneak around and steal office supplies. Today, I will be inconsistent and unpredictable and unaccountable at work. Today, instead of dealing with situations that upset me, I will create melodramatic diversions. Today, I will develop a new unhealthy communication technique. I have a right to be emotionally detached from all things around me. This world will someday realize the hidden genius of my work. Team playing is for insecure people who aren't capable of doing things on their own. It is never okay to ask for help. I must do everything on my own to ensure it is done correctly. Today I will scoff at people like my boss who think they know more than I do. I am at peace with nothing. I learned that in California, where you learn to meditate and become one with absolutely nothing at all. Okay, anyway, so I decided to do some diversity work after I developed a presentation called Humor and Stress Management in the Workplace. Very popular workshop that I get contracted for quite a bit, because the stress management piece at work and all of that, everybody feels like they're stressed out. Stress is not even the correct word. It's strain, actually. And actually, without some stress or strain in your life, you wouldn't get up and go to work. That's just the truth. But we feel as though we need to manage stress. So the stress of today's workplace is that there's so many different kinds of people in it. People who may or may not be like us at all. And the thing we focus on the most, which I really don't touch a lot, even though I did make the comment about the great white males, is diversity is not just about race. And I want to make that really, really clear. We live in such a black and white world in this country that people don't even want to embrace diversity because they get really scared about having conversations about race. And the reality is, at some point, we probably really do need to do like a massive healing around that, because we can jump to diversity fully knowing we have not conquered racism, we have not conquered sexism, we have not conquered homophobia, lesbophobia, we haven't even really touched classism in this country. And what I'm studying with my doctorate in social gerontology, ageism. I had no idea how ageist I was until I started this course. I didn't really realize that, first of all, if you're lucky, you'll get to confront some ageism. But ageism is there right when we begin calling people millennials and defining their behavior by their generation. That is ageist. It is ageist that we're constantly worried about how we look compared to what? The billion-dollar beauty industry doesn't talk about us maintaining youthfulness. It talks about us being forever young, which is a myth. It's not going to happen. And so even at school, I'm there. Most of the young people pursuing their doctorates, they've gone from bachelor's to master's to doctorates. They're 23, 24 years old. So one of the students was having a birthday party. He's 25. And he invited me to the party. And I'm working on a paper. So, you know, the party started at 7. It's now close to 8. He's texting me, "When are you coming?" So I say to Marshall, "Why do they want me to come to this party so badly? It's his birthday." So I said, "Okay, I'll be there in a few minutes." He's waiting for me outside in the parking lot, right? Escorting me into his own party. I get in there, it's like 15, 20 kids, they start clapping. Like, what? It's not my birthday party. What's really going on here? So I sit there, I stay for about an hour because I still have work to do. And then the next day, Miranda comes by to pick up some papers from me. And I say, "Miranda, well, I didn't understand. Why was it so important that I was at that party?" And she looks at me and she said, "Because you're our friend." And I got choked up because I didn't think of myself as their friend. I feel old there. I don't act old, you know what I'm trying to say? But that made me confront my ageism like head on. Like, why am I creating this separation? They're not creating it. And so it's been an ongoing process for me to look at, even in terms of doing this diversity work, why am I creating that separation from myself. We're all there together. We're all studying. We're in study groups. I'm their colleague. But they actually embrace me as their friend. So it's a big learning for me. And I feel very fortunate to have this learning at this stage of my life, of my own development, so that I can confront my own ism, you know, instead of looking at it in a different way. So these, this is pretty standard. I think most of us are pretty familiar with diversity when we look at it in this way. We look at ability. And you know, if you've been around for a while, when I first started doing comedy, if someone was in a wheelchair, we called them handicapped. And I remember referring to someone in a live show as handicapped, and they corrected me and said, no, I'm disabled. Then it was differently abled. We have other abled. Now we basically focus just on ability. We don't even really always use disabled. I have one student in my class, she is hearing impaired, and there's a whole people first movement. So you say people with disabilities, right? But some of the people in the hearing community don't want the people first movement, because for them, not being able to hear is their identity. So they want to be called deaf people. This is very confusing stuff. You gotta stay on top of all of this, the language with the gender, right? Do you know that ZE is a word? Yes, ZE is a word. It is the word to describe people who identify as they or non-binary. ZE. If you don't keep up with this stuff, sometimes you are insulting people. You are calling people in to interview them, and they are writing out, they're not saying his or her. If your forms still only have his or her, change them. Male or female, change them. You've got to have that non-binary on there. You've got to ask people how they are choosing to identify. Because it's not up to us anymore to look at people and say, oh, she's a girl, he's a guy. That's not the way the world is moving. And it becomes very, very, very important. And just because I identify as a member of the LGBTQ community doesn't mean I understand T, because I don't. I don't feel like I'm trapped in a different body. I choose to love someone of a same sex or gender. That's not the same. And so we have to really break free of a lot of the heteronormative, that's a big word, but it's what it is, where we presume that everybody that we encounter is heterosexual. Because in today's world, and it may be your children or your grandchildren, my 14-year-old granddaughter has come out as bisexual. I want to ask her, do you know what sex is? Because you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how my thinking is. Like, but I can't ask her, how do you know? I knew when I was 5 that I like girls. You see what I'm saying? But in the world I lived in, there was nobody in the 50s I was going to say that to. The world is different, and we have to be able to, even if you don't agree, at least do the mind expansion piece and open up our minds so that people can feel that safety and that security that we've been talking about, that we want to enable people to feel. So those are just some of the areas. Culture. We think we know what culture means. My professors say they could do a whole course just on the meaning of culture, because it means something different to everyone. Gender, socioeconomic status, man, oh man, if you want to alienate people, ask them, how much do you make? Nobody really talks about money. And yet we are a classist society. We disdain the poor. Nobody in here is really aspiring to be poor. Anybody? Anybody want to be poor? Raise your hand. Okay? And yet I'm learning through my work in gerontology that 1/3 of the American population over 70 is living in poverty. And by the time you get to 75, it's a clear almost half. And we all want to live long, right? But imagine living long and looking forward to a life of poverty. So even in our thinking, right? People rush to retire. I want to retire at 60, right? Okay. So you get a big lump sum, because not a lot of us come from money. So you get $300,000 at 60. You're going to live another 30 years. Do the math. That's $10,000 a year. You're impoverished in America, right? These are not the things that we are taught. How we're going to live. We want to live long. We want to live strong. And the reality is we don't live that strong. We are living longer by medical means, not by our own healthy standard of living. Machines and medications are keeping us alive. So even that we need to change in terms of changing our thinking and our way of being in the world, right, today. So I call this workshop Finding Joy in Diversity. Many embody, one in mind. Why did I choose that? Many embody, one in mind. I've been a Buddhist for 50 years. Buddhism is really big on you already possess everything you need to be happy. It's really simple, and all Buddha means is awaken one. And my goodness, don't you want to be awake? You know what I mean? I don't want to go through this thing with sleeping. People get very intimidated or think it's some great ashramish kind of thing, It's really about just awakening to what? Your own inner potential and your own purpose in life. So many embody means we're all different. We're all different, right? One in mind. Let's be singular in purpose. Let's have unity around our purpose. Is our purpose really to be able to make this world a better place? I think most people would agree with that. Because after you've been here for X amount of time, it can't just be about eating, sleeping, working, brushing your teeth every day. At some point in all of our lives, we've asked ourselves, what's it all about, Alfie? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? Why am I here with that person and in this environment? And so that many embody can be a unification in terms of accepting that each of us is different. We have different abilities. We have different race and ethnicity, different sexual orientation, different religion, different family backgrounds, different stories. But that doesn't mean that we can't be united in terms of our purpose for being here together and very possibly learning from one another. So then we don't have to do that. I think the biggest challenge for me as a comic and studying the way that I do has been the fact that the American tradition of comedy is put down. It is put down. And we laugh at it, but it's not that hearty belly laugh. It's a nervous, uncomfortable laugh. Most stand-up comics know there's 10 adjectives: big, fat, black, ugly, stupid, crippled. We used to say crippled. Woman is always in there, and I always forget the other three. But that's why, for a lot of us, comedy is not really a great thing for us. We were laughed at. So it's very challenging to go deeper and find things to laugh with another person about. The common foibles that we all go through. Like, why do we get in the elevator and still press the button? It's been pressed. It's not going to go any faster because you press it and you press it and I press it. These are things we all do. I don't know anybody. Nobody ever goes in the elevator and goes, hello. We all get in, we stand there and we press the button. And we hope it gets there really fast. There's things that we do as human beings that we can find that unify us. So if we're aware that all of these categories can be divisive, which most of us are aware of, we use it against each other, rather than realizing that the ways that we're different can really be a learning and can really bring us together. So that even in our inquiry, I picked this slide Because there's so many ways that people can be different. Age is not even on here. I just became aware of age, as I'm saying, when going back to school. But personality, how many of you have children? Children, right? Your kid ever come home and just say, I don't like Miss Brown, my teacher, I don't like the teacher. Any of your kids ever say that? They don't like her. What did you say? Why? Did you ask why? Yeah. Did anybody say, like I said, you have to like the teacher, that she's the teacher? Doesn't matter if you like her, you gotta listen to her, right? Is that the parent thing we said? You're not there, it's not a popularity contest. You're there to learn. We don't care if you like the teacher, you're a nice guy. I wasn't that nice.
No, I used to say to him, yeah, she probably doesn't like you either, so get over it.
Right. My son had a teacher who did not like him. It made it very hard for him to be in her class. Why didn't she like him? Was I gonna go to, because he's a little black boy? No. She didn't like him because their personalities clashed. We can be that diverse. You know, I used to think sometimes, you know, the whole Arab-Israel thing, maybe they don't even like the way each other smells. It can be that way. You ever get around somebody and those pheromones and you just go, I don't like him at all? It can be that, diversity can be that intricate. That a tall person might not like a short person. A larger person might not like a smaller person. You know, all the ways that we are different can be embraced or they can be repulsive and create schisms that we don't even really mentally, emotionally understand. But they're worth looking at. If you have that kind of visceral response to somebody, you need to look at that. Because it may be keeping you from getting where you want to go because that person appears as though they're a gatekeeper. You know what I mean? Keeping you from getting where you want to go. And it could just be as simple as, I don't like him. I don't like his tie. I don't like his haircut. You know? He drives a better car than I do. I mean, it can be anything that's humanly possible that keeps us from working together. And yet, when harmony works, when it works, isn't it a beautiful thing? When you find yourself actually befriending or having to work with someone who's different from you, and as you get to know that person and your life begins to expand because what you thought about that person, the assumptions that you made about that person or those groups of people turns out to not be true at all. And sometimes even just based on that one experience, you can begin to feel something inside of you shift and change. And that's why, yes, we're all comfortable with people just like us. Absolutely. Well, last night we were upstairs, Marsha and I were upstairs, and I live in Ohio, and with this accent, right? I haven't lived in New York since I'm 17, but the accent will not go away. I'm from the Bronx, right? So most of the time I temper it, except the comedy, I use it. I become like I just left the Bronx. And then last night we were with 4 other New Yorkers. She said my accent got so thick she barely could understand. I said, you see, I feel at home, you see? I got louder, more Dominican. I mean, you know, everything just came out. Because I felt comfortable. I know the Southerners always feel comfortable saying, because it's such a distinguishable accent. As my father, who's from the West Indies, he used to say, the Southern accident. You know. You're laughing. This is what I was raised with. It was terrible. But anyway, you know, so there was a comfort level that I felt that sometimes when I'm in Ohio and I'm talking and somebody says, you're not from here, are you? No, I'm not. How'd you know? You know? So we have the people and the places and the situations in which we feel comfortable. And no one's saying that you just go out of your way to be uncomfortable. But in your positions, in the companies in which you work, in the hiring practices that you execute, sometimes coming out of your comfort zone. You know, what if there is the young guy who shows up for the job interview and he has on jeans and tennis shoes because he doesn't really know that he should put on slacks and a nice shirt for the interview? Do you just automatically dismiss that person because of that? You know, things that because I do it myself. I'll see guys, you know, sometimes you'll be around, you see open hiring things, and you see people show up and you go, don't you know you don't come for a job interview like that? But the truth of the matter is, some of them don't know. So then what do? Do you just dismiss that person? Or do you sit and talk with them and see some potential in them? Because I'm gonna tell you something, you can teach somebody how to put on a shirt and a tie and iron their pants. But I don't know that you can put enthusiasm, creativity, willingness, desire to learn into someone. And you could have that person right in front of you, and you're dismissing them because they don't look the way that you would like for them to look. And so I would hope that, you know, we can get past some of this other stuff. So Merriam-Webster defines diversity as the quality or state of having many different forms, types, or ideas, or the state of having people who are different races or who have different cultures in a group or an organization. I really looked to see what is the commonality that we all share in American culture. Anybody have any idea about American culture? What do you feel is like an American cultural thing? Football. Okay.
French
Anybody?
fries?
Huh?
French fries?
French fries. Okay. French fries.
Yeah.
Get that?
It sounds about right for American culture.
Thanksgiving.
Hamburgers with the bun.
With the bun, yes. Very
Not
good.
lettuce. Okay.
Large
Yeah.
automobiles.
Large automobiles.
Mm.
Again, something that everyone, is there anyone here, raise your hand, if as you were growing up, like let's say grade school, junior high school, you felt absolutely comfortable with the way that you looked? Oh, the hands, I'm blinded by the hands. Nobody. American culture shames us. One of the things we all have in common, I don't know football at all. I don't eat burgers. But I know shame. I know shame. I know shame about skin color. I know shame about height. I know shame about being thin. I know shame about wearing glasses. When I started wearing glasses at age 9, right? I had to come up with a smart thing to say because people were laughing. I said, my extra 2 eyes see what your 2 eyes miss. You know, just a little skinny kid. You know, always fist balled up, protecting my brothers. Who's bothering my brothers? About this size, right? Shame. It's in our culture. We're either to this or to that, or not enough. None of us. I've asked rooms of men, have you ever felt good about your weight? No hands went up. We have all suffered at the hands of not feeling good enough, not feeling like enough, not being proud or happy of who we are, not liking the way we look. I mean, look at it, it's a $1 billion industry trying to anti-aging. Anti-aging is a $1 billion cosmetic industry, and none of the serums work. Because the only way you're ever going to look young again is to be born again. And I don't mean in that way. It's over. But you can dab, and you can try and can hit those points, and you can stretch and lift. So the countercultural movements in this country, from New Age to holistic movements have been designed to help people accept who we are and feel better about ourselves. So that's the Brene Browns of the world that we hear, and is all about loving yourself as you are. What a concept. Because we are people who don't necessarily love ourselves, grew up not feeling that great about ourselves, and now we're in positions of leadership who get to judge other people based on what? Our self-love that floweth forth ceaselessly? No, we're judging them based on our own limited ability to love ourselves. So how do we have the nerve to really assess anyone else? We've got to put on that leadership jacket, because it's a jacket, and act as if you're qualified. Yeah, you're qualified. Oh yeah, I see your potential. Really? And you go home and you don't feel that great about yourself. So guess what? Where your work is? In loving yourself. The more you expand your ability to have compassion for yourself and love yourself, the more you're able to see people through more clear eyes. When I'm at peace with me, I'm not at war with you. I'm not jealous of your car. I'm not jealous of where you live. I don't even care that I saw how much you make and it's a lot more than me. Because one of the axioms I live by, you don't get rich counting your neighbor's pennies. Better work on your own penny collecting. Right? And how do our own biases and prejudices affect us when we are in positions to really help people? Do we pick and choose? And what is our criteria for our choices? Is it because they look just like me? Is it because they act just like me? Is it because they come from a background I understand? Is that why I'm choosing them? Am I willing to listen and learn and maybe even take a chance with someone who's not like me? You know why there's so many women in HR? Have you ever thought about it? Because HR was the first real place in the corporate world that opened up to women. And then women would hit that what? Proverbial glass ceiling. Well, you could get to be maybe the VP of HR, but you weren't going to go and transfer over to some other place in the corporation. You were going to stay right there in HR, and you better get all those certifications, because that's as far as you're going to go, lady. And what was it based on? If you were capable of being at that level over there, why not over here? So sexism is still alive and well. It is. And so there's a lot of room for all this type of growth. So I wrote here that it is imperative that all Americans develop, train, and educate ourselves towards inclusiveness within our families, communities, workplaces, and educational institutions. We must arouse the willingness and courage to face this collective challenge in spite of opposing forces and influences. We are the United States of America. Are we united? I ain't seen much of it. We are the land of the free. Free? How free do you feel? There's America the Beautiful. I've been in every state in this country. I've performed in every state in this country except North and South Dakota. This is a beautiful country. Beautiful. Physically, landscape-wise, to look at. The people, we've got work to do to bring out our beauty to match the beauty of the physicality of this country. And what is inner beauty if it's not loving ourselves and expanding our own capacity for compassion and understanding. That's what we need to do as people, as Americans, okay? So, let me see my slides. I get very excited about this stuff. I like this slide because it says diversity. Different individuals valuing each other regardless of skin, intellect, talents, or years. That's race, intellectual ability, your talents, or your age, right? How many of you feel smart? Any smart people in here? Yeah, she rose her hand high. Yeah, I'm really smart.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. What makes you feel smart?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe that I was.
Mm.
And now I leaned in. And it's myself that makes me feel smart. The connections that I make that I'm like, oh, I really am. And I have a gift to share with the world.
Mm.
So it's that confidence that makes me feel smart.
Wonderful, wonderful. From the inside out. And who else said they were smart? What makes you feel smart?
I just think that inherently, like, everybody is smart, but we all do dumb shit too often. You know, and that's okay. And that's okay. It's like, you know, well, we are smart, and afterwards you say, yeah, I really knew better than I did. Yeah, you're right. You know, and that's what happens. Like, you know, I was saying to somebody else the other day, it's like, you know, when you do that project at home, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this project at home, and then, you know, I'm gonna call the guy to come fix what I just broke again. You know, and it's just like sort of part of the gig of being a human.
Home Depot says that the majority of their sales comes from the do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah.
They get all the stuff, they're gonna do it themselves, but then they have to come back to Home Depot and contract somebody to come and fix it.
But you know, like I always thought it was like amazing where you know you have this stereotype of the dumb football player, and I always say when these guys, you know, when they make it up to the professional level, have they ever seen what a pro football playbook looks like and how they have to memorize and being able to execute? So they are smart. They might not be smart. They might not know classic literature, but you know the 6 different options on on a halfback dive. You know what? You can't name them. I bet you they can.
Right. So you're saying in a lot of instances it's relative.
Yeah.
You raised your hand.
Me?
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of competence and confidence. And I grew up in a very small town, and I went to a small private school where I was like the smartest kid in the class. So I was labeled as the smartest kid in the class from though I was overweight, red hair, freckle face, don't look like I'm related at all to one of my parents. So I got called names based on which I need to talk to you about from the West Indies, based on assumptions that people made about my dad. So I just kind of held on to that. And I was thinking while you were talking, I remember in 8th grade, the kids in the class were talking about if you could trade places with somebody in his class, who would you trade places with? And everybody was choosing the prettiest girl in the class. And I said, nobody, I'm good. And they were like, what? And I said, I'd rather be fat than stupid. So I think I had a little bit of arrogance thrown in there too.
A little bit.
I call that confidence,
And
girl.
You know, there really is a difference though between knowing stuff and knowing that you know. Those
Yeah.
two
Absolutely.
definite. Those are two
Oh my
definite.
gosh.
And that's like when I know when I work with staff and people, especially when I was in training. That was the big leap. That was the big leap that a person made where they knew that they knew it.
Yeah.
I would say the opposite is true. Being smart enough to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And being comfortable in that. Like, I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know?
Absolutely.
I don't know. Let's go find someone who does.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I say that I chose this slide because of these particular things. Skin, the intellect, your talents, and your age seem to have the most impact on in HR, right? And so it was brought to my attention, for instance, that there's some young people we call millennials, right? But I've been to conferences where I ask younger people, do you like being called a millennial? And they don't. But what is even deeper than that, it's like any person that I know who's brown or acknowledges that they're brown or black never refers to themselves as a person of color. That's a label that was given. People say people of color, but I never stand up here and say I'm a person of color. So millennials is the same kind of terminology. These are terms that are given to people. And people don't like it. It's as if your name is Jason, but I want to call you Robert. I feel more comfortable with Robert. And then I'm mad when you don't identify as Robert, because you're Jason. Why don't we give people a chance to share who they are, rather than making assumptions about them? Because the second I say that you're a millennial, then I am saying you like this and you don't like that. And that's not true. And so what happens is we get nervous that if we don't put people in boxes, if they don't fill out that form and check these different boxes, we are not going to know what to do with them. Yes.
One thought, you've heard of the term BIPOC?
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we have to get BIPOC talent, and then I'm included in that.
Yes. Yeah.
What is
Tell them what BIPOC is.
It's Black Indigenous People of Color.
Okay.
And it's a new term that you just see everywhere. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, we need our BIPOC talent, and we want BIPOC. And I'm just like, and I'm in BIPOC. Like,
Right.
I just learned. I'm like,
Right.
it's just weird. I don't know how I feel
Yeah.
about it. I'm just like, okay.
I get uncomfortable saying it. I look away. I don't
Yeah.
look in the
Right.
eye, and then I look.
I thought it meant bisexual people of color. I didn't know.
No.
I didn't know what
It's-
BIPOC was.
It's very, yeah, and I interviewed for a diversity recruiting firm, and I never knew how, it was people of color, Black, Indigenous. I get tripped up on it, and then I look away, and then I look like I'm lying.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and I would rather just ask, do you want to be called Black? Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
works for you? But we're not there yet, and we have to.
As a comic,
We
I'll
have to
say
get
people
people
of
there.
color, and then white people get very nervous because they'll slip and say colored people. And, it's pretty sad then, right? Which I'm here to show, my birth certificate says I'm colored. So I've been colored, I've been Negro, I've been African American, I've been Afro American, now I'm Black.
I read an article where there's people in the Hispanic community who are upset about the idea of being Latinx.
Right,
They're like,
right.
They're like that's a liberal term that
Right.
a liberal person came up with, and then I know other people in Hispanic say no, we identify ourselves as being Latinx. So it's like
A what? I can't do
Latinx. Or my friend from
Latino,
Puerto Rico who
Latina.
says, there's no place called Hispanica.
right.
What is Hispanic? Where did that come from? So these are all terms we have to be careful about. If they mark other and you want to say, well, where's your family from? You know what I'm saying? But why do we even need that? Plus, how many of you are from Italy? Families from Italy? Germany, Russia, right? Hungary, Slovenia, Latvia. I mean, how do white people get away with just being white? It completely erases any cultural thing you have going on. Last time I checked, Italian people don't eat the same thing that Swedish people eat, but you're both white. This white-black thing is boring. It is boring.
So boring.
It's old and it's boring. And unless we're willing to dismantle some of this, even in our own small ways, it continues and it forces people to be less than people. We're moving into an age, I mean, I don't know any of you have grandchildren? Or just younger children? The children don't care. They're like hanging out with each other. My granddaughters one's in college now, she's 19, but when she was 14 in high school, she had a young boy who was her friend who identifies trans. Well, he just likes hanging out with him. We don't care. They don't care. We make them care. Who's that? Why is he here? Oh, is it a boy or girl? What's going on? You know what I'm saying? We make it weird. They don't care. They're not. 6 of my grandchildren are Mexican and black. Their first language was Spanish. I get insulted because I'm saying, come on, we gotta go. Grandma, they don't speak Spanish to me. So one says zapatos. I said, that means shoes. I said, I know that means shoes. You have to tell me zapatos. The only word I know, zapatos. But even they know. And now I'm gonna tell you something else. 3 and 5 years old, they're sitting at my kitchen table. I say to them, do you want peanut butter and jelly? The 3-year-old goes, I'm black. I said, well, does that mean she wants jelly? I'm black. I said, well, how do you know you're black? Poppy's black. So the other one, 5-year-old, takes her straight hair like this and goes, well, I'm proud of my Mexican side. So she leaves the table. The 3-year-old Ishel says, Imani's black, she just doesn't know it. Now everybody I've told this to laughs, but think of the moment of sadness for me, that at 3 years old, she's already trying to figure out who she is. Because her hair is not straight, it was curly. So now she's 16, and you know, if you watch TV, the multiracial look is it, right? So her hair is all over. I said, you know your hair's the shit now, right? And we laughed. But I had to watch her at 3, already trying to figure out how her skin was going to impact her life. It's time for all of that to go away. So somebody comes in, they're wanting to apply for a position. They have that skin, or they're not dressed the way you think they should be dressed. How do you assess them? What are the assumptions that you make? And that's highly personal stuff. So, let me see my next slide. You can see I'm very simple with the slides. They don't, no curtains open up, nothing recedes into the background. I got no dancing icons. But I'm gonna ask you to turn around and just in groups of maybe 2 or 3 of whoever you're sitting next to, I want you to just share in a minute what makes you happy in your work today, either your job or in your work today. In person, at least it's working, huh? Oh, good. Oh, does that have much time? Yeah. Okay.
You gotta talk faster.
I would say what makes me when corporations team recognizes the contribution.
Didn't they eat up about 5 minutes of my time? Do you live in Houston? I live on near Lloyd Road. I'm 272. That's 273. Beach Drive. It's over off of East 26 with Oriole.
Okay.
To
the Kirby Street?
yes.
Okay, so I'm on the corner of Ballard and 266.
Oh my gosh!
So like at the end of my street is like Hemlock or Willow,
Yes,
whatever, yeah.
2 blocks from there.
Yeah.
That's so close. We must have lunch or something.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you don't make that weird?
All right, well, this was a quick one because I'm looking at the time there. So does anybody want to share what makes you happy at work? Yes,
Creativity.
creativity. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyone else? Yes.
I have a lot of freedom to make change and transform our HR team and help transform the agency. And I haven't had that at every job. I've had, much more time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anyone else? Yes.
Working at my pace instead of other people's.
Wonderful. That sounds good. Anybody else have anything you want to share?
Appreciation.
Appreciation.
Being appreciated.
Okay, all right. Now I'm gonna just open this up and just in general, what brings you joy? Not just in your work life, in your life in general. Joy. Family. Anyone?
A long bike ride.
A long bike ride, okay.
Seeing my kids thrive.
Okay. Sitting on the beach, okay.
Nature, my dogs.
Okay. And this is for you. This is for you to be mindful because it's really challenging for us in the stress of day-to-day living to remind ourselves of two things. We're here to be happy. We are here to be happy. Suffering gets a lot of time. You know? Some people are masterful at suffering. Okay? But we're here to be happy. And that kind of happiness, with what we call happiness, relative happiness, when you get something new and all that kind of stuff, that absolute happiness is something that's more akin to joy, something that is not really dependent on the outside environment. And most of us experience our most profound joy when we're serving or helping others. When we have that experience of absolute selflessness, because most of the time we're pretty wrapped up in ourselves. But every now and then we get to experience true joy when we're doing something for someone and we're not thinking about ourselves at all. And we feel so happy because we were able to kind of transcend that lesser ego. And so I encourage you to look for as many opportunities to experience joy in your life. And so when you find yourself extending beyond some of these labels in terms of dealing with people, and you think instead of what can I get, you think in terms of what can I give, even if it's empathy or understanding or compassion or more of my expanded view. If I can give those things to people and leave my ego aside for even a few seconds, then that joy has a chance to well up inside of us. What you said, your ego is not your amigo. I get it. All right, I don't have a whole bunch of time. I just want to share with you because a couple of these came up. This is a list of basic human rights. You have the right to choose your own lifestyle so long as the rights of others are not violated by it. You have the right to decide how you want to spend your time. The right to be treated with respect. The right to experience and express your feelings. The right to say, I don't understand and ask for information. And as you said, the right to say, I don't know. The right to take time to slow down and think. The right to change your mind. The right to choose with whom you share your personal body territory and with whom you spend your time. The right to make an honest mistake. Oh boy, I don't know about you. I grew up in one of those homes. When you grow up sometimes very, very poor, as I did, there was almost little to no room for a mistake. And I had to learn very slowly that I can make mistakes, and it's okay. The right to ask for what you want, and the right to say no and set your limits. It's another thing many of us in this culture have a really hard time doing. It's setting boundaries and limitations. It's really okay to say, no, I really don't want to do that, you know? So, now, let's see. This is very interesting. I got this from the Harvard Business Review, that diversity bringing the business case to life. The Wall Street Journal conducted a survey in 2015 and found out that, bringing diversity into the business world is not just empty phraseology, that actually more diverse teams create better work. That's very important for us to realize, that homogeneity does not mean you're bringing out your best. It's important to have people on your teams who think differently than you do, who see the world differently than you do, who have different cultural backgrounds, different perceptions. Because once you're in a team with those people, better ideas come to the surface. It's not just the same old, same old. It says diverse teams are more likely to constantly re-examine facts and remain objective. They may also encourage greater scrutiny of each member's actions. So when you bring up that accountability, then it becomes very important to have that. To stay competitive, businesses should always continue to innovate. One of the best ways to boost their capacity to transform themselves and their products may involve hiring more women and culturally diverse team members. So if you have to make a case, you can look up some of these things. If you have to make a case to your organization for having more cultural diversity, more women at the helm, then there are definitely statistics and reports out there that will confirm that for you. Oh, am I doing it the wrong way? Yeah, if I face it in my hand, it won't happen. And wait, it's not happening anyway. Did I do something?
Well, then.
Oh no, I'm not at the end yet. So 5 ways to create a positive workplace. Number 1, give the benefit of the doubt. Don't make assumptions about people's behaviors and actions. 2, practice generosity of spirit. You be the first one to be generous, and don't necessarily wait for somebody else to decide to be that person. Speak well of others. I just mentioned to Marsha. Marsha's been on her job for 36 years. 36 years. I've been an independent person for about that long. I can't even imagine being on a job that long. And yet when I heard what you were sharing, Janet, I looked at her and I said, I've never ever heard you say anything negative about your job or any of the people. That's kind of profound. That really touched me to know that she's that type of person. And then look at what works, and if it's not working, come up with something else that'll work, okay? And show appreciation. I have noticed as time has gone on, especially in these COVID times, what is happening to civility, people? It is going away. People are not even aiming to be courteous. The my way or the highway is the way. And people don't understand. Civility is like greasing an engine. It makes life just that much more livable when you say thank you, when you say excuse me, when it doesn't mean you're subservient when you say, may I sit here? Maybe the person doesn't want you to sit there. Maybe they were saving the seat for their mother. Who knows? But to just come over, pull the chair, and sit down. Now you've got to muster the courage to say, well, I really was saving that seat. Well, why didn't you say something? I fly a lot. This is the thing that happens now when you fly. You get up, and people want to get by, but they just stand behind you. They don't even say, excuse me. What happened to excuse me? It's my own personal pet peeve. They just stand there, like really close, like you're feeling their breath. Say, what's wrong with excuse me? It's just bizarre to me. So we're in a workplace, it would follow that maybe sometimes you might need to say these things. Now this is a worksheet that I actually have framed in my office. I didn't make a slide out of it. It says, visualize your business or your workplace as a unique opportunity to exercise creativity, to make the world a better place, to offer you, your colleagues, and your clients a shared commitment and a sense of community. Imagine going to work like that. Because have any of you been unemployed? Raise your hand if you've been unemployed. Boy, where was your sense of community then? Right? Even your own identity goes through changes when you're unemployed. So to go to work where you actually are visualizing, you know, on Monday morning, hey, I missed all of you. I couldn't wait to come back here and share my community with you and my commitment to doing really great work here. Yeah? My dad taught me that your dreams are your reality. People get very caught up in what's real and what's not. And I've lived by that. I talked to my son recently, he's 50, and he was telling me I said, you're having a spiritual crisis. I said, where are your dreams? He said, Mom, I don't dream anymore. I started crying. I said, well, you know, your granddad taught me your dreams are your reality. You need to really take some time and pray and meditate and get some of those dreams back. He's just feeling a little hurt, you know. Like you said, you want your mom. You can't be mom, you know, your mom. You feel that all down. Like, you're older now. Don't do that to me. But I responded, you know, I got off the phone, I cried, and then I called him back, man, you got to get your dreams back, you know. Because there are times when the reality of how we live, this world we live in, how things are going and all of that, you must nurture your own dream. If you have a dream, really, I have a dream, if you have a dream that we really can move together in harmony, move together in unity, move together without prejudice, move together in unity and in harmony, then that's what you can nurture for yourself to keep you going when reality says no, okay? And stress spelled backwards is deserves.
Right.
So which would you prefer, right? And let's see what else do I have here. I have a lot of stuff, but I can't go through all of it. These are 10 commandments of human relations. Speak to people, smile at people, call people by their name. Be friendly and helpful. Why not? Be cordial. Why not? I find it so much harder to be kind of nasty and rude. Be genuinely interested in people. Be generous with praise. Be considerate of the feelings of other people. You know, kind of that laugh and count to 10, you know, before you just say something. Be alert to give service. Add to this a good sense of humor, big dose of patience, and a dash of humility. The person I've had to work this out with is my mother. Because now as an older person, she can be really annoying. But I've had to really have a good sense of humor with her. Big dose of patience, dash of humility. I came from her, she didn't come from me. And I get rewarded now. She's happier. My mother was like a negative Nelly. And here I am, you know, always talking all happy and bright. But it's wearing off on her now. She puts herself in check a little bit more. So I have to follow my own stuff sometimes, which is hard. How many of you know about the 4 agreements? Boy, oh boy, what's the first one? Anybody know right offhand? 4 agreements. It's a book. I forget who wrote the book.
Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
Don Miguel Ruiz.
Right. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. That was the hardest one for me. I take everything personally. Don't make assumptions, right? And always do your best. And as they say, your best may vary. When you don't feel well, sometimes just getting up and getting a cup of tea is your best that day. You know. But I try to live by these, and as I said, don't take anything personally, because people's realities don't really have anything to do with you. Everybody's coming from their own perspective, their own truth, their own reality, and sometimes all you can really do is be there. You know, we use each other as sounding boards. We don't like to really say that, but that's the truth. Okay, so let me just look and see where I am time-wise. You know, I like those people, but they took some of my time.
I purposely gave you 5 extra minutes.
Thank you, because I didn't get any.
And I love those people too.
I didn't get any chips, sorry.
You were supposed to provide snacks. not
Thank you,
get
Summer,
snacks.
for giving me some Reese cup, thank you.
You're welcome.
Diversity in the workplace. I'm just a child at heart. Accomplishments have no color. I like that, I just included that. Give me a team prize there. It has no, is it cute? Jim, I'm so happy you appreciate it. And then, also, there's a guy, Izzy Gazelle. He said something, and I put it here, and I said, well, people are gonna wanna know who Izzy Gazelle is. I still don't know. So anyway, he said humor is a language, I looked him up. He said he's some motivational speaker, who knows? Humor is a language by which people, I can't even read this, it's so small. Wait, hold on, it's important, wait. Humor is a language by which people join and identify a common universe. They consciously and unconsciously make statements through humor about themselves, their relationships, their groups, and their company, which they find difficult to say otherwise. There is a place for humor in the workplace, because if there's a place for humor in your life, it's a way of looking at things. It's a way of saying that although this might be really serious, I don't have to make it like so deadly serious that I can't see the humor in this. Humor is really important. Now, we've come a long way from people just, kind of Xeroxing their bare butt on the Xerox machine. That used to be funny, but it's not anymore. I think it's probably is sexual harassment or something like that. And then people would put little Dilbert things up in their cubicles. I don't know what you do now. But the fact remains that humor really makes it possible for us to look past some of all of those isms and really be able to create a language where we can identify with one another just as people, which seems to be so lacking in our culture today. We can be very, very divisive. So, let's see. My next slide. Oh, look at all those smiling people. You know why I included that? Because just for the same reason that Summer mentioned about smiles. I have traveled all over the world, and I don't speak, I used to speak French fluently, but not anymore because I don't have anyone to speak to. When I go around the world and I can't find anything or know what to do, I go like this. And people help me. A smile is so powerful. It is a language. It is like that first language of humor is the smiling. It symbolizes openness. It says that I'm approachable. It says I'm teachable. Maybe I'm in a good mood. Maybe I have a good spirit. But it shows an openness, that in this life is very, very important. How we greet people, how we see people. So, I just want to thank you all for having me here today to speak to you. This is my contact information. I hope I get to come back next time with Mike and get a balcony. And so, in closing, I'd like to quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. That was said with love, Mike. I gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which I must stop and look fear in the face. I say to myself, I've lived through this and can take the next thing that comes along. We must do the things we think we cannot do. Thank you so much. Thank you.
There was a lot of wisdom in that. There's also a lot of things I agree with Karen, and there's some things that I didn't. But I still love you, and that's what's important. You have so much wisdom. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate that. Let's take okay, let's come back at 11:10. Okay, so we'll start you just 10 minutes late, so that way we can kind of stay on track. Okay.